Okay, Heidi can't be here tonight, so I'm going to attempt to run the meeting. So I call this meeting, the meeting of the Tree Preservation and Planning Committee to order. We don't have to do a roll call, so we can just go right into the agenda, correct? So,
Roll call?
because there's nobody on.
No members are missing or
Online.
remote.
There's,
We still have to say who's here.
It's in
It'll go in
it'll
the
be in the
minutes.
minutes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just talking about for votes.
I guess you only have to say here if
Here.
it's, if
Here.
there's, if it's a hybrid.
Here.
So, the first meeting, item on the agenda is to approve two sets of minutes, both last, 9:29 minutes and 9:10 minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read them over? And does anybody have any questions or concerns?
I've read them, but I wasn't at the meeting, so I read.
Okay, so since there's no objections or questions or concerns, we need somebody to move to approve the minutes.
Move to approve both the sets of minutes that we've read.
Second.
Okay, so moved, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is
Well, we just
to,
have to ask folks to say aye.
Whether they approve or just.
They said it's
the
approved.
motion.
oh, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Any abstentions?
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to introduce Joe Prondak, who I'm meeting for the first time, building commissioner, to talk to us about the intersection of the tree, any potential tree bylaw and regulations with the building department. So I don't know if you have anything planned or if you wanted to do it like a Q&A type thing or.
Maybe I can just do a quick recap for Joe of where we're at, and
That'd be
then
great.
I had shared with Joe a couple of topics in advance that might be of interest to the group, with some of the conversations that have happened with the bylaw. So Joe, at this point, the committee has been going through the Wellesley bylaw for tree preservation, and we've done a red line first with Ed and I, and then with the full committee, going through section by section and identifying where sections need to be updated to align with what the goals are of this committee. In terms of triggers for the bylaw, we've talked about 4 permits that would trigger the bylaw: opening of a street permit, new construction, a demolition permit, or addition or alteration permit that would increase the footage of the building footprint by 25% or more. So that's the that's kind of like what we're looking at as a starting point. We haven't looked at regulations yet. We're just focusing on the bylaw right now. Knowing that there's been experiences from other communities who've had this bylaw in their zoning, and some chosen to put it in general. We've heard different experiences from building commissioners who have had to implement. So I think what would be helpful for a starting point is maybe to just hear a little bit from you about what you see for averages for some of these permits that we're talking about for triggers, so that this group can get a sense of volume that might be involved with this kind of bylaw, and then maybe we can go from there.
Okay, so members of the committee, Joe Prondak, building commissioner. So I do apologize right up front. I had a crazy day like Ed that started at 6 a.m. with some investigative work that we had to do, and then there was a fire last night at 2 a.m. that we had to review, and so I didn't get an exact estimate on the demos. That's the average number of demo permits per year. I can get a pretty good number on. I just wasn't able to get it today, but I would estimate that at about 30 per year, and that ties directly usually to the number of new construction and new homes built. 30, 35, maybe 40 on a really good year. But I can confirm that. I can wrap that up tomorrow and get that to Gabby. In Gabby's memo to me, she also asked, well, average number of permits that increase the footprint by 25% or more, and that is something that we simply can't mine that data because an addition/alteration permit could be any size. Any size addition. It could be a remodel of bathroom, roofing, siding, all of that fall under the addition and alteration category. So it's literally impossible to mine. But my estimate of those that would increase the footprint by more than 25% are probably 25 or less per year. And that's just kind of a educated guess. That was, I think, the first part of Gabby's questions that I can comment on. So I think from this point, more of a question and answer type of format would be better. Without having a finalized bylaw, it's going to be difficult to estimate the workload. Much like the stormwater bylaw. So the stormwater bylaw, for example, the way it works now and the way it will continue to work relative to building permits is that, we get an application for a permit. We look to make sure that there is stormwater provisions within the plans. Building inspectors do not review those. We send them off after we do our building code and zoning aspect of the project. We approve that end and forward it off to engineering. And engineering does the double check on the, does the design meet the criteria? So I would envision that, sorry, Ed, but that it would be a similar process. That we just basically look to see that you've put the information into the application and then let Ed's office review it for accuracy or proper design, proper comport with the tree bylaw. So having said that, I'll give it back to you guys.
That was our understanding. But I think we spent a lot of time last meeting talking about where in the building process where in the process does the whole tree plan have to be submitted? Because the way it's written in the Wellesley bylaw, the tree plan, the mitigation plan has to be submitted when the demolition permit is taken out. But the questions we all had was, well, in that process, are trees being taken down prior to the demolition permit being pulled? And is there any way, aside from just the honor system, to, because on the tree preservation and plan that they're supposed to submit, they're supposed to indicate trees that were there that were within the last 12 months. But without having any foresight into property that's going to be demolished, but there's no application done yet. However, we know that a lot of developers will go ahead and clear the trees potentially prior to submitting the demo permit. So what does that seem like a problem to you? And do you have any ideas on how to better?
Well, it would, I am not of the tech age, but I think some of our Gabby, for example, maybe, and from my understanding, I think, isn't it possible to look at like a GIS or some sort of, I know when I was in Milton, we relied on some aerial views, not so much it was more for ground coverage than trees, but there were flyovers done by the USGS or some federal agency, and they got updated every once in a while. But Google Earth, I think, can sometimes give a good indication of what was there. And if in, within the process somewhere, again, hopefully, sorry, Ed, you know, he had a staff member that could, you know, view the Google Earth image of the property and see if what they're putting on their plan aligns with that. And if it doesn't align, you call them out on it and say, hey, this is what we saw here before just 8 days ago on Google Earth. Now your plan shows there wasn't any trees existing before the demo. How do you manage that? But also, you know, we could also put into the process that, you know, that the plan must be submitted by a civil engineer or somebody with some responsibility, either a license or engineering registration, that, you know, they're not going to be willing to risk giving false information, you know, and a lot of construction that happens in Needham is done by regulars, and I think that's going to continue for a long time. So, you know, they're not going to want to get caught, so to speak. You know, I think that's a benefit. Sure, there are some, you know, builders that come in for the first time, but I think it just somehow needs to be made clear in the regs. You know, that we need to know what was there before you purchased the property.
So I
Yeah.
have a question.
Can
I
I
wanna go?
Yeah, I just want, because I think it ties in
Yeah, go.
with that, is we went through thank you, that was really helpful, because that is an area we want to talk about. And one of the things that would help is, a lot of us don't really understand what a street permit is, because that's the other trigger, and how often, number one, when they should be pulled, and how often they are. And not that we have authority over changing that definition, but it might be that that'll solve some percent of those concerns, but we don't all really, I know I don't understand. And it seems like there's some confusion over those. So do you have
Yeah,
a?
so I didn't understand it either until I got on the Stormwater Bylaw Committee. You know, basically a street permit, up until this point, happened anytime somebody, you know, if you were building a pool, for example, and you needed to drive trucks over the sidewalk and over town property to access your property, a street permit was required. Was it done all the time? I don't know. Tom Ryder could speak better to that. But what we decided in stormwater bylaw, because construction doesn't, you know, construction of homes, additions to homes, renovations to homes, doesn't capture all the areas where we want to apply the stormwater bylaw. So what we decided was we would add, you know, for example, somebody wants to build a pickleball court, or any sports court. You know, that does not require building permit, does not require any approval from our office, yet could have a dramatic effect on the way stormwater flows across the property. You know, it increases the impervious area. So we decided that we would capture those types of activities under the street permit.
So this was the question that someone here had and someone outside has asked me, would currently, for an average tree removal on, like, what we're gonna call the tree yard, so like the perimeter of a house, I know lots vary in size, but you know, there's tree removals happening all the time, many times, you know, perfectly appropriately diseased tree. But does a typical Hardy Graymont or whoever need a street permit for that? I feel like typically not, right? So in theory, the average tree removal would not typically require a street permit. Do you have a sense of that?
I don't. I think that's a question better for engineering. My guess is no.
Yeah, that was our thought, but I was curious.
I should jump in. I did talk to Tom Ryder, who's our town engineer, and I should also note the reason why Joe is emphasizing that is because street permits are administered through the engineering division.
Got it.
So I did talk to Tom, and he said that actually any tree removal work should be getting a street permit. Even if they don't go over the sidewalk, if they stay in the street, they should still be pulling a street permit he said he can only think of a handful of instances where that's ever actually happened.
Yeah.
Joe. And
Maybe
he,
that one,
he
yeah.
said he would be amenable to adjusting the language on the website to
Yeah.
specifically list that as a requirement. But he, again, indicated that it's very rare that anyone's doing this at this time.
So that's actually really interesting. I know that there were other questions in it, but for us to come back to as a committee, because I think a small tweak and kind of publicizing to the regulars, again, like good companies that are working and need them. And finding out how much additional time and cost that would be for homeowners, but that could solve. For the same reasons that someone like a civil engineer is not gonna put at risk. Their reputation with the town for good reason, Kurt's not going to, like, I'm not worried about Kurt skirting the regulations, right? I think that. Might solve some of the problem. Some of them won't, so anyway, that's something to think about, especially, I certainly am not proposing that we rewrite rewrite what the permits are, but if it's actually supposed to be done. You know, it's not crazy to say that that's
Yeah,
something.
but
that
we
And
also-
it wouldn't be a change to the permit language, like what Tom is saying is right now, the
They're
permit
supposed-
requirements as written, they should be doing that.
It's just
I-
that we're not enforcing it and it's not.
Well, we don't even know it's happening, like, we
Right.
can't enforce.
But if the street permit's supposed to trigger the tree plan, then we're gonna end, if
Mm.
they start enforcing that, like all arborists start having to. Are
Yeah,
gonna start having to pull street plans, then everybody, including just the private homeowner that just is
Yeah. so
trying
we'd
to
have
do
come up
maintenance
with
on
some
their
reason.
property, so we don't wanna do.
Maybe
trigger
they
those
want
They
instances.
wouldn't
permit.
have to do a plan though, unless they were removing a tree that meets the
Hmm.
protected tree definition. So if they're removing a disease dying tree,
They
they
only,
just check the box and
Say,
say,
we're-
like, this is not applicable to me. The
Right.
other thing too that I
That's-
do just want to emphasize is that Tom, I think, was pretty honest that it's gonna be a challenge to get people to follow through on the street permits, and having the 12-month look back for the demo permit is probably gonna be the most effective way to really evaluate that.
Okay,
there are, yeah,
So then our task is to spread the word sufficiently that, that people know that there's gonna be that 12.
and that's.
and it's written in there, the
Yeah,
question is,
but
do we wanna add language that references that somebody's actually gonna go back and look at
We-
Google Earth or
Yeah.
whatever, the GIS data? That,
Well,
I mean, I
that's
don't know
what-
that
Well,
we
that's
need
what
to
has
do
to
that.
happen. That's what has to happen. The question I have is, and Joe and Ed, but perhaps in this case, perhaps more Joe, the question I have is this. You know, a 12-month look back is to some extent is nothing. Someone buys a house, they're gonna be building a new one at some point. It could easily be 12 months before they tear it down and start the process anyway. So it's 12 months in my viewpoint, I'm not sure what other towns do, but if they do 12 months, fine. But a 12-month look back, in my eyes, doesn't mean very much, as opposed to a minimum 6-month look back from the previous owner. So I mean, there has to be some previous, there has to be something previous before they buy the property, and a few days doesn't count. There has to be something enough before they buy the property, because the skirt around is easily going to be, well, we'll buy your property, but, you know, we're gonna play these trees first.
But,
So
or
it would
even
be-
before they sell it, the resident.
Yeah, so what I would comment on that, you know, and I hear this from the builders all the time. When they buy a house for $1 million or $1 million, you know, $1.2 million, whatever it is, they're paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. So I would say the majority of these tear downs, rebuilds are done as quickly as possible. So, you know, you might have a couple of outliers where, you know, for whatever reason, they're able to hang on to it for a longer period of time. And in every bylaw, whether it's tree, stormwater, zoning, building codes, everybody, there will always be people that will find the loopholes.
Yeah, but some of these loopholes are easy to find. I mean, for example, I mean, a 12-month or a 6-month minimum, 6 months before this property sold, whichever is longest. I'm not sure how to phrase that the best way, but I mean, they're always gonna find the
You know, how do
loophole.
you do that? I mean, how do you know that,
Well, you
how do
know,
you know what property's going to sell?
no, you don't know what property is gonna sell. What you do know is by looking at the satellite photographs going back months, you can see what's going on with the trees that were there than the trees that aren't there. You don't necessarily have the exact days, but you get a very good idea.
but how often do they update those? I mean, I would imagine.
Every couple of months or so, the satellites, the data's updated.
The datums
Yeah.
vary,
Yeah.
but you know, the most recent one is 2023, like the GIS data.
Right, so it doesn't matter then,
No,
if,
no, Google Earth has it. Every 2, 3, 4 months, they have, I see updated shots going back. I have a shot from Google Earth now. If you go in, you can't see it on the phone, the dates, but if you go into the computer, you see the dates of each shot.
So I think-
That's how when we were doing the natural resources working group, when we were looking at another question, the 78 tear downs that were done in 2020, 2022. I was able to go back and see exactly how many trees were there before they took these houses down. Obviously, that was going back to a couple of years. But everything I do now, when I go into the work I do, I go into Google Earth Planet many times and say, okay, when was that addition done? Well, I go back a couple of months, couple more months.
So
I can
the-
see what's going on.
So I know where you're going, and I think it's a good discussion point, because I think, let's say we get the bylaws in, they're voted on next year. We can potentially say from when the bylaw was enacted, then the look back would be maybe to that date. I just don't feel
The bylaw was
enacted.
Once
when
it
it's-
passes.
Huh?
that
Once it passes, because I think, you know, I think going back historically to look at the trees, anything could have happened. It could have been disease, it could have been a lightning bolt, it could have been anything. So I think we have to be realistic in the sense of what is practicable, what is really reasonable. So 12 months is reasonable, in my opinion. I think, you know, I think if we make it so that it is too cumbersome, it's going to be complicated to enforce on the DPW side or the team. And it is already going to be difficult, but you know, I understand where you're going, and there's always gonna be somebody who's gonna have a forest in the back and slowly chip away at it. We don't know.
Well,
But we can't-
there could also be a builder that has a forest in the back and they really want to take that down.
Yeah.
And they really want to take it down, they're going,
But I think
they're
the
going to wait that,
community,
they're gonna wait that 13 months.
I know, but I think our community is quite voiceful.
Yeah.
And we don't have that many, vegetated areas that would go unnoticed. But the question I had before you asked yours was, is there a way? Because I think in terms of educating the public is one thing, but educating our contractors, educating and building awareness. So I believe Cambridge and Somerville have it, but don't quote me. Some contractors need to register with the town, and they need to receive all the bylaw packages and whatever. It's not a formal thing, as you know, you can't do business if you're not registered. It's a good citizen kind of approach and being good standing with the community and the town hall. I don't know if we have that here, but I think
you mean
something.
like a
to
code of conduct they have to sign off on?
No, it's not even a code of conduct. It's like you're a new contractor. Like, for example, I'm a new contractor and I want to do business in Needham. So what do I need to do? When I come in, I have to register my business to do business in Needham, right? So I don't know how they do it in Somerville and Cambridge, or how they do it in these other places, but I feel like most of these contractors, I don't know, do you do that anywhere else? Like, do you register to do business with a town hall or a city?
We have to be registered in street bond, so.
Right, so what I'm,
Well, we're coming down the pipeline with 3 new big zoning changes. So it doesn't matter if they've been, you know, if they're
Right, could
new
be
to the
anything,
town.
yes.
Everybody needs to be informed of all these changes.
right, so I think,
Was
What
this a
I'm-
question for Joe?
yes, what I'm trying to get at, Joe, would it work in specific if we had somewhat of a registration process for contractors, whether they're builders or arborists or, you know, tree removal companies.
I think I just, you know, this is the first time I've heard this idea. I think it would be a monumental task and would certainly require additional staffing, additional resources it would not be a simple process. And you know, what do you do on those, you know, you may get somebody, you may have a lot of people that build in other towns, you know, that they rotate, you know, their
Right.
businesses around.
Yeah.
You know, the state approves, you know, construction supervisor's license. There are some 250,000 active construction supervisor licenses in the state. You know, and I think Chris Heap would also want to weigh on this. I understand what you're looking to do, and I do know that's, you know, I worked in both Quincy and Milton, and they did have specific contractors that did street openings. You know, because they needed those contractors to be registered and familiar with the type of pipe that was in the ground and how the connections that were required and all of that. But I think that's a unique situation.
Right.
And with a very limited number of contractors that would even be willing to do that. But the number of contractors that are able to come in here and build, and it's constantly changing, you know, as you know, the older contractors move on and retire and sell their businesses, and you know, new people up and coming. I do see that as a, you know, not impossible, but certainly would require more resource.
Seems like maybe the in-between way is to coordinate, and I think it was Ed, but I don't know who put the note in the chat, and Erica who said that there's so many things coming, right? And it is gonna be overwhelming and a lot of change, and the residents are gonna have questions and the contractors are gonna have questions.
Yeah.
Presumably, there should be some coordinated education campaign, and certainly there's people, even if it's not a new registration process, I don't think anything stops the town from sending out emails or every time that someone comes to do any permitting, that they get an info packet that says you need to look at the website, these 3 things, like big,
Regulations have
like
changed.
really big deal, like this is coming down, you know, in 3 months, these are all, you know, this one's gonna be active. It's because it's not fair, right? If they've like got a plan and they do some work in Needham, but they're balancing different towns, we want them to have fair notice too. Because you'll get better compliance that way. So I think everyone has on the list, I'm sure, in each committee education, but that's an aspect of it that I hadn't given as much thought to, and I think is even more important than the public, not more. They are both important than the
Yeah.
public.
I would comment on that, though, that you know, the energy code, for example, very complex new energy code that we have. And you know, we invited contractors to a couple of different education sessions that we held, and only a few showed up. Most contractors will come to our counter and say, okay, what does this mean? What do I need to do? You can put all the publications on the website and in the newspaper, and they don't read them. They just go, because there are so many variables from town to town.
That makes.
No, I totally get that. The lawyer in me though says at least we've got to do our part of putting the info out there, so there's can't be, you know, and hopefully it at least gets them less surprised and attuned to the concept that there's a tree bylaw.
Right.
Details.
You know, in some of the new bylaw, you know, the energy code, the stormwater bylaw, you know, large house review committee will undoubtedly come up. There'll be right now there are 3 main tables, you know, for types of construction, zoning bylaw, large house review. When they're done, there will be a 4th table added. And, you know, each individual program that gets added by itself may not be, you know, that cumbersome, but combine them all together. And you know, we're certainly looking at more resources to handle all of that. And with the ever changing and increasing state requirements, you know, the MBTA zone, the ADU bylaw, all of that, it just increasing the workload over, you know, to no end, really.
Fred?
So Joe, I'm wondering if there are other things that we should know that would be helpful for us to know. Because we don't understand all the mechanics. I was intrigued when you talked about how you do an education session at the counter there. That sounds that's very good to know about. And how long does that take typically?
Well, it's not an education it's not an education session that we do at the counter. It's just people showing up. Come to, an individual contractor comes to the counter and says, what does this bylaw mean? What does the energy code mean? What does, and it's a one at a time.
And what would help us when we're trying to get our rules across to that busy contractor who shows up?
Well, we do, for both, so for the energy code and the ADU bylaw, the new state mandated zoning for ADUs, as we began to understand it better, we created a couple of cheat sheets, so to speak, that we keep right at our front counter for the most common situations.
That's a good idea. Yep. A cheat sheet.
That's a bad term, but you know what I mean.
No, it's a good
No,
term.
everyone-
Everyone know what it means.
Everyone has.
I have a clarification question, a quick clarification question, because I thought I heard you say that you don't have the actual data because you didn't have time to pull it, but you thought that there were about an average of 30 demo permits per year, and I thought it was much more than that.
No, right now, I don't think so. I
It's
think
gone,
we're
it's
back to
gone
two.
down. It was
Yeah.
75 to 80.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
It was,
That's just.
years ago, it was in the 75 to 80 range.
Yeah, I think that's dropped.
Mortgage.
Because
And I
it's-
think that, a lot of that's directly tied to the interest rate,
Yeah,
Right.
and a lot of our regular builders are telling us that, they're holding on to houses much longer than they ever were. So that slows them down on, taking out new,
they're not processing through and selling what they're building as fast.
correct.
Because they're larger and larger numbers, which have smaller and smaller markets.
Mhm.
Well, and also Nita is slowing down as well because there's not that lots to build on.
Well, they're not building new lots, they're just knocking down and rebuilding.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are no new lots. I mean, there may be, what, 3
Seldom.
subdivisions in the last year? There might be 6 more units,
Yeah, there's every now and then, there's like you said, a little revision coming in.
but they're few and far
Not a lot.
between now.
Not a lot. Yeah, Joe, you were talking about 35, Madam Chair, I just want, so Joe, you were talking about like 35 tear downs. And so, I mean, I know things have slowed down quite a bit, but going back to, again, I think it was 2020, 2021, somewhere around there, we were having like 78 tear downs per year, 100 tear downs per year, going back a few years, but I know things have slowed down quite a bit. So when you say 35, was that, for example, last year, the past 12 months, do you think, Russell?
Well, again, like I said in the beginning, this is my own estimate off the top of my head. I'll get you a more exact number tomorrow. It was
Because I
such
know
a
it's
crazy day. I left work without even getting it, and
No, I
but
get that, because I know things have slowed down quite a bit. I already
Yeah.
know that, and in the housing industry right now. Good, thanks, Joe, appreciate it.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Kurt?
No, did Ed have a side?
Yeah.
Ed?
Oh, yeah, and
Kurt had
no,
a
it just popped up real quick. It said, Kurt, is this true? When we were talking about.
Just seemed to be a little,
track.
I think there's like 30 teardowns on Dedham Ave alone, never mind.
Yeah, it feels
town.
that way.
I just seem that, no offense, Joe, I know you've had a busy day with the fire and it's a long day, but I think we table that till we get some true facts.
Yeah.
That seems
But
really
in
low,
general,
really low.
compared to 75, it's not.
Okay.
Five, I do think I think Ed.
All right, does anybody else have any questions for Joe? So we can, if not, we can let him go and
Thank
keep
you.
going. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
okay,
Appreciate your time.
Have a
all
good
right.
night.
Have a beer, watch some TV. Go to
Yeah,
bed.
something like that. All right, thanks, folks.
Okay,
Thanks, Joe.
bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is to review the Wellesley bylaw. But I'm wondering if we should sort of skip ahead and tick off a couple of quick things. Maybe like, for instance, maybe you could give us, I mean, it's not a quick thing, but maybe you could give us an update on the large house. And we don't have
Oh, that
anyone
would be
from
great.
storm
That would be really helpful.
water here today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be
We have-
great.
We have 2 large house people.
We have 2 large house people.
There you go.
Sure, not a huge difference from what I reported, I think.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. We are in the process of,
Financial.
we're about 2 weeks, well, yeah, about 2 weeks out, at the end of this month, we are gonna get final fiscal report. Which we are gonna be sitting down with the planning board the middle of this month to show them our work, and we will have an initial fiscal impact study at that time, and then 2 weeks later, we'll have the final. So we will then be producing in the early November, our recommendations to the planning board for what we think are the best ways
Yeah,
to
yeah,
propose modifications to the current bylaw, changing ways large houses get measured. And we will, with the fiscal impact, we will be able to focus, I think, more accurately on what amount of reduction seems reasonable
Okay,
for a proposal.
okay.
For single residence.
This is just SRB.
Yes, that's-
These are the small
Can you
lots, yeah.
comparing 3 different reductions?
What we've done to date is looked at Concord, Wellesley, Lexington for their bylaws and their history of tear downs or changes of large, new construction, and the sizes of those. And I don't know if I said this before, but the point is, there was a market difference in what Needham is seeing get built for average house size
Quite a bit.
versus all these other
Quite a
towns,
big difference.
by about
Yeah,
30 to
like-
40%.
Yeah,
So that tells us that, there's something that
Discrepancy.
could be adjusted there if
Meaning
the
that-
will is there.
Just to make sure, because I didn't get to come to the awesome meeting that the public forum you guys did. So you mean that Needham, if you, all else being equal, is having 30 to 40% larger houses per size of lot and
Yes.
compared.
It's the best
So
that we can,
obviously-
yeah, not every town has exactly the same distribution of the lot sizes that we have, or the
Yeah, I'm
or the
sure.
districts that we have, but we've tried to pinpoint
Right.
in all cases what's most relevant, what's most on point for us.
The fiscal data that you're gathering, well, that's pre and post large house review implementation in the various towns.
It's gonna just be our town.
Yeah, it's just-
Are you talking?
We're only
about
doing
the-
fiscal impact on what if there's any potential change or impact on what the value of that property would be on the marketplace if houses were made to be
Yeah.
a certain size. So we have
that's
2
interesting.
houses that are being used as examples,
I see.
2 reductions.
And you're basing is that an estimate or?
That's based on all the data that we're getting from the assessor's office. So it's all transactions, whether it was directly from a builder to a homeowner without going to the market. So, it's MLS data, plus it's also assessor's data, because we gotta capture all of the sales.
Yeah, that-
So we need to
that's-
know what the sales were for that particular property, and then presumably they're making some
That-
assumptions
yeah,
on
best estimated education.
if there's an impact
estimate
on.
What the future cost reduction, if any, or increase or decrease would be on that future selling price of the initial property.
And again, this is not necessarily, there's one transaction that probably has more impact, that's the contractor impact, because there's the ones that have to actually do the math and say, okay, now I'm building a 2-5 house, not a 3-3 house. Where am I gonna stop bidding? So there's gonna be an adjustment somewhere in there for that value, but that doesn't mean that all the end users that like that house are gonna keep going. There's nothing that's gonna stop them from bidding. So there's gonna be maybe a change in the complexion of which lots are getting bought more likely by builders and getting torn down versus going to homeowners. So likely on the smaller lots, there'd be more impact. And so because we have really big houses being built on small lots. So the most important thing we're trying to do is to just get houses that are appropriate to the size of the lot. So if you want a big house, bigger lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Right.
Is there a theory why Needham's, houses are so much bigger than in these other towns?
Because there's no restriction.
We don't have
Yeah.
any, we have a
restriction
bylaw that
is
doesn't
minimal.
count. Our bylaw has an FAR that allows you to build, it only counts your first and second floor, but the basements and the attics can be built without any,
So our
any
FAR
impact.
formula is.
only
more-
capturing
Very
a
less
piece of it. So there's a lot that just goes through without being counted.
Yeah, it isn't directly.
And then
related to
they
Needham.
can
It isn't
change the
directly related
grade
to
of,
Needham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It isn't directly
well,
related to
that's a whole
Needham.
separate, that's a
Separate
separate
thing.
issue,
It's
yeah.
How much you
directly
sit,
related to Needham
remember
is
that?
a good town, it's directly related to the fact that we are very less restricted. Needham is a great town, in the meetings that we've had, there's been comments, Kurt, I don't know if you've made any of the meetings, but that we have had comments a couple of times in maybe both our meetings, that initially there would be some blip, some change in some valuation, certainly I suppose in the selling price, but then that blip would then go away and things would go back to normal. Because Needham is a great town, four trains, 4 stops, a bus going to a fabulous hospital, so people want to move to Needham. It's just the fact that, we've had not anecdotal stories where people want to buy into Needham, but the only option they have is buying a 6,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
Afford to buy it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
the point-
because of
The
the,
point being is if they do buy into Needham, they'd like to buy a 3,500 square foot house, or even a 4,500 square foot house. They have no option. The only thing being built are
Yeah.
5,500, 6,500 square foot houses on a 10,000 square foot lot or less sometimes. So
Yeah.
I
they
mean, I
want to
think
buy
that
it
that's a
down.
parallel
Across the
that's
street from
really
me.
helpful for us as we talk to the public more generally. Because that's the same theory of the case with the trees, right? And I think there's a lot of historical reasons that, and I haven't been here as long as most people here, I'm sure. But I am at the anecdotal, I have a house on Petrini Circle because someone renovated one of the original Petrini houses, and it's right in that middle ground. And so we were looking, and there weren't things that would fit our family in the right spot, but luckily there was that. So it's, but I guess what I'm saying is, it is what it is, and I think that understanding kind of when we're telling the story to kind of friends and or at public meetings, right? Like that's a really important point that I didn't know. And so I'm not that, and I'm sure you guys talked about it or will talk about it at future ones, but just as someone doing it now, it's less technical. It just makes sense, like more, this is the trend is needing to, if you're caught off guard during a boom without certain basic rules or, agreed upon principles of building things,
irreversible.
it's hard to, it's not that we're revolutionizing. And I think that like people understood that too with the trees when we've been talking with folks,
Yeah.
like, okay, I know that these other towns have them. Ours doesn't even have to be as restrictive as theirs if that's the choice of our community.
Mhm.
But having, once you're behind, you really have to, it
Well-
impacts this middle ground. And I think that's a narrative that can tie our committees
Mhm.
together.
Well, the phrase is behind the curve. I mean, we can't change what has happened, but we can't change what's going to happen.
Right. But I,
So we've been behind the curve, trying to get some type of change going on. We're way behind the curve. But we can certainly do something now for the size of the houses going forward and something, whether it be Wellesley, I'm not sure it would be very restricted, but some of the towns around us seem to be very practical. Bylaws in place now, Ed may or may not agree with me on that, so, but I'm not sure about that, Ed. But some of the other towns are doing something that's a difference. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't. do
Even if
this.
they don't capture every single, even if there's loopholes and stuff, it's still a net reduction.
Well, I mean,
in-
if we know of a loophole which is flagrant, for example, we do something to mitigate that loophole. Oscar, at our meetings, we've been talking about that, and we're interviewing Wellesley, Concord, Lexington. I don't know about all of them, but talking to them, saying, what have they seen in the construction going on? What issues have they seen, phrased both loopholes have they seen, and how often have they seen them? And so what do we have to take into account when we're looking at our bylaws? We have to take anything into account. Because we always have to think about, well, is it going to work? Is it going to matter? And that has to do with what loopholes they can find, and make sure we don't lose people.
With respect to, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to wrap it up, because
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
talk about this all night. It's interesting that talking to these towns and we have been on the phone with these commissioners and planners, and they have, I think every town has done a bylaw in the mid-2000s, the mid-teens, and is also going back and revised it.
Mhm.
And so we're on track
Mhm.
with a revision
Mhm.
because they're catching things that they needed to adjust and then doing it. So, and that's about an 8-year cycle to start to see patterns or.
And we're basing our, current work on the revised bylaw from Wellesley, so it's already
No,
in.
not using
thought
we're not
we were.
using Wellesley, we're using Concord.
No, I mean for trees.
For
I meant
trees, yes,
trees.
for us, we're using, I think Concord is, and the thing that we also are trying to do is fix the way the current bylaw does or doesn't work very well. We have tiers, and the tiers are sort of arbitrary, and so all of a sudden the FAR changes at 12,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
And it's, doesn't make sense. So what Concord does is it has a calculation for the actual lot size, and it produces a unique FAR for that lot.
Mhm.
And then we're adjusting so that there's a slight bonus to the smaller lots to give them a bit more FAR to be able to work on that site. And then it goes down as you get to larger lots, because it just doesn't make sense to take a single slope all the way through
Yeah.
to get to, ridiculously large houses. And then we probably produce a cap at
Mhm.
some point, because you get these really big lots that just,
Yeah.
what you're dealing with ultimately is an experience on the street
Mhm.
with frontages.
Yeah.
And the frontages are all in that 60 to 90, maybe there's some that get bigger, but generally you're saying there could be a weird, and we have these examples, these anomalies in town where you have a lot that is 10,000, it's next to some lot that goes way back and covers, 30,000 feet. So they can go and build something that's 3 times bigger.
Mhm.
And then you put that house down
Right
in the
in the
middle of the
full-
street, and the only persons that are seeing it are the people driving by. And it's like, so
And
there's
the
a certain.
best example, and the best example is the 80 Gary Road and the one on Yale Road, where there's the one on 80 Gary Road is the one where the lot is going back on the other side of the stream, continuing, and it's a 32,000 square foot house and some.
Lot.
30,000
Yeah.
square foot.
Yeah, lot, sorry, lot,
That must be J-Lo's
lot, and
house.
they're putting up a close to 10,000 square foot house. Then on Yale Road, there's a lot that goes this way, then up the hill and that way. And in the front of the lot, they're putting a 7,500 square foot house next to 4,000 square foot houses.
Yeah.
And these just obscene things.
So the,
It's
and
the same builder, plus the
Yeah.
same builder doing.
the other thing that's important is that we also want to introduce, this is another problem, this is another issue I think that we have to talk about, because it's all about managing the labor changes and the demand on the workforce.
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that we don't just do things that are so black and white or so hard that there's no appeal process.
Mhm.
So we would have a special permit process. So if you have a lot that does have an extenuating circumstance or some large size, and you do want to go in and talk about doing something that's, breaks what would be coming out of the FAR, there's a process.
Mhm.
So I think these are all things we have to understand what that means for, as we've been
I think-
talking about,
I think-
labor, staffing, all that stuff.
I think it's incredible work that you're doing. I think the biggest component that I see, which is really affecting our community, is the degentrification. That is one of the significant impacts of having these homes built and no young families being able to.
Well, you're changing the you're changing the
And you're-
complexion of the
Yeah.
buyer. Yeah.
Well, the
So
economic
anyhow, I just
Massive
wanted to
economic
put my 2 cents, but
diversity
that's nothing
change.
to do with
Okay,
All right.
Yeah.
enough.
we're gonna keep moving. So let's just have a quick harvest fair discussion. I think the majority of the people in this room were there, which is really nice. It was a very well-attended event, beautiful day, we had a great location. And by my impression, it was a very successful
Yeah.
day. We brought in the kids, we talked to their parents. I don't have any measurements on how many new people signed up for a newsletter or visited the website but it was an excellent avenue to announce the listening session. And that's coming up November 17th, I think.
19th.
Can I ask you
19.
a question about the listening session?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, Oscar, I think as we've, at our meetings, the phrase listening session, it sounds like you're gonna talk to them, then they can talk to you, but then that's it.
Well, we have yet to discuss what the listening session will
Versus
be
a Q-
comprised of this
Versus a
time.
Q&A session.
Yeah, maybe it's a Q&A session. I don't know. We're,
Well, the point of the first one, which we did, was a listing, because we didn't have anything that we were
Right.
gonna, we were,
No,
that was
no,
definitive,
that's not
right?
true.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
No, our first large house,
No, that's not true at all, no.
we
Not true.
had done research, but
Not
we
true.
did not have any determinations on. You know,
Correct,
Right.
correct. We did not have a plan.
We
in
can't.
the second one, but it wasn't a just, we're gonna listen to you and not say anything. It was,
Oh.
here's our presentation,
Sure.
here's our breakout tables, then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk, and we're gonna have some questions, answers, we'll talk to them.
so actually, small table format would be great,
Would be
you know, to
great.
break it down and have.
like
small
we did
groups.
last time.
I
Yeah,
think the last time was perfect.
Okay.
yeah, because
So
that's,
I
people
will
feel
talk
comfortable.
about that next time
Yeah.
when Heidi's here
Yeah.
and, you know, and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which
So-
we did in the first, yeah.
Yeah, it did in the first.
That's
one.
actually
Yeah,
very-
worked well in
it
the
takes
second.
the-
It was
yeah.
Key questions and answers as well.
Anybody else have any comments from the Harvest Fair or questions or anything?
Good job, Erica.
With no biggie. No biggie. Thank you for all your help. Okay, so I don't know what we're supposed to talk about for this discussion of memo to departments and committees.
I can take that one.
Okay.
So we had talked way back when, about what outreach was gonna look like for the bylaw process. And one of the topics that we talked about was
Right.
giving, other departments and committees a heads up that this is a focus for the group. Keeping it high level, but letting them know, like, very simple, what are some of the parameters we're thinking about for the ballot, to give them a chance to provide input early on if they see concerns. Obviously, we're very fortunate that Ed is part of the staff for this committee, so he's with us every step of the way.
Yeah.
But there are other departments and committees that will be impacted by this, and I know I get questions sometimes from other departments about where we are. So the hope is, in November, to have a memo that can be sent out to other departments and committees and have at least a couple weeks for them to send feedback to the committee, on what they're thinking about the bylaw focus.
Mhm.
So this group, it would be helpful, as staff to hear from this group about what kinds of things you're comfortable including in a memo, and my hope would be that for the next meeting, we could come with a draft for everyone to have reviewed before the meeting and then discuss at that meeting.
Mhm.
That's great.
I think one of the things that we need to include is our general timeline, you know, when we're talking to the departments, that our goal is to have this before the select board on X and hopefully have it at town meeting by Y. And, yeah, and that we
We
wanna,
have that pretty much blocked out.
we have it,
Yeah.
yeah. We have that great
It's
calendar.
Still October of next year, I mean,
No, fall.
So I think it's also important they know what legwork this committee has done, who they've been consulting with, what reviews of different bylaws have been done. And because it gives it context in terms of where we are today is because we've done X, Y, Z. So I think that would be important too.
yeah, Oscar, that's what we were laying out at our meetings. This is what we've been doing to get to this point.
Yeah, something simple like that. But not too lengthy,
No,
Mhm.
it needs more bullets.
very
And I-
simple.
Yeah.
I think we want to include, I don't know how we want to word this, but that this is kind of the direction we're going in terms of we're focusing on the clear cutting with new construction, hoping to make a difference in those cases.
And my major addition.
And major additions for the first round of this bylaw.
Okay.
And then,
Gotcha. Yep, that makes sense.
So do you wanna have us give you draft information, or do you wanna take a,
I think we can take the first stab.
Okay.
And then the goal is we'll get that to you in advance of the next meeting. We have a month till the next meeting, just because we weren't able to find any other dates in October to meet,
so we
so,
can give you feedback on a
yeah,
Word document, trying
Yeah,
changes.
exactly. So
Yeah.
the-
Share or something.
yeah, send it around with people can make edits or send
Gotcha.
comments or make
Yeah.
comments like you have on the.
Can we do
Right.
Google Share? Or is that not
We
appropriate?
don't have a Google Share. I think my preference would be to do email, just to make sure that people email it back to me. And there's no,
Okay,
And so that
Collaboration
falls
online
under the
for open
open
meeting.
meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
But I'm happy to share it in a
So
Word
it's
doc
not
with them, and
theory-
people can do comments and send it back.
It's serial communication because we're all sending you stuff, but
Yeah,
presumably this is all
Yeah. we just-
copacetic.
Hopefully, it's all
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah, because
similar
then it
comments
treats the
and,
byline and then we all see it.
Yeah.
together. Yeah, so
yes,
that's-
exactly.
Yeah.
But that's helpful just to have some general feedback, so we can start with that, and that's enough for us to go on for the first draft.
Yeah.
all right, and last on the agenda, we've saved the most interesting part for last. So at the last couple of meetings, we reviewed the bylaw, the red line of the bylaw that Ed and Gabby had made changes to. We got through the whole part of the bylaw with some additional comments and changes. And so what we want to start doing today is reviewing the rules and regulations, I think.
We left in the last meeting that we were going to look at the table with the different tree.
The setbacks, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so we unfortunately haven't heard back from Chris Heap yet, and
Okay,
he's
good.
helping us
All
to
right,
craft
so
that
let's-
language, so we have to
let's
table
put
it
that
for
for
now.
us. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Do we want to talk about Kurt's
Right.
about the front yard?
I
think we
don't,
were waiting. for-
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, so we brought it to Chris, but I don't have.
I think that's a very valid,
Okay, so
Point.
those 2 points are pending further information. So
Yes.
we left it off just to go right into the rules.
Yep, so
and we
there,
still have to do definitions, but
We're
we'll do rules first.
Which will
Yeah.
make sense,
Yeah,
if we don't,
yeah.
if we need answers on those other things.
Yeah,
before
yeah.
Finalizing definitions.
yeah, so I'll just take us to this.
So take us to there. Yeah.
And would you like the red line version, or would you prefer the clean?
I think the red line version is better to see the chain, because yeah.
Yes.
So if it's okay with you guys, I think we just keep the red line version. So hopefully everybody had a chance to review this again before meeting today. And I guess kind of what we've been done in the past, we've just sort of gone page by page, and people can bring up any questions or comment areas. So, I don't have anything.
As much as we've talked about it, it didn't sound like we were changing anything in these first four things. We've beaten it to death and there's nothing that's gonna catch it. Other than a really good opening paragraph that talks about look back,
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, the look back's gonna
I
have.
think
right?
it's just,
Oh, I should.
But we
I
should think
should've-
about that, this is where it would be.
This is where it would, yeah,
Right,
so there should be an opening.
As the this is where.
And it is in this section, and we do want to make sure that the changes we've made on the bylaw are reflected in the rules and regulations.
right.
And that they're all
And
consistent
or
and stuff.
anything that we think is something we as a town need to emphasize.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe what Wellesley felt they needed to emphasize.
There was one other leftover business, which was whether we do anything to protect the critical root zones of a butters.
Yes.
Trees.
Oh,
And that was
right.
was that a Chris Heapy thing too, maybe?
That was in the definitions, but I think we
Oh.
said we were gonna hold it till we did the
Okay, so
definition.
that will be, okay.
But that's
all right.
not a
Good
good
that
place
you
to catch it.
remembered that.
That doesn't sound like a good place to catch it.
I think. we'll
Wouldn't
have
that be another one up here? Cause not everybody's gonna be a good guy like Kurt and talk to the neighbors. Right.
Yeah,
That's, I mean,
yeah, so maybe.
I think it's really, it's a,
section
we
to
could,
this for
just
that.
Does Wellesley do anything about a butters trees? Do we know?
yeah, I don't know.
Ed's
Well,
shaking his
we-
head.
Yeah.
Ed,
That's it.
Yeah,
yes,
You're muted.
Wellesley does nothing for abutters trees or critical root zones as it applies to property zones. No, nothing.
okay.
That's
So,
not, that's
There's a
not,
reason?
of course, that's illegal.
As it applies to a butters.
so it falls to.
Right,
the-
once a property line is passed, they do not take any consideration of the neighbor's root zone with their tree bylaw in Wellesley or any other community. So we'd be
But-
cutting edge if we did this.
Wow.
But what
Yep.
about,
What's your opinion, Ed, about whether
Yeah.
it's too cutting edge or whether it's something that we should try to take on?
We can do whatever we want, guys. I mean, this is why we formed this committee. But again, as they listen to us talk, we want something simple to roll out. We're just starting. So why don't we think about simple first and build into regulations as we learn from lessons and really keep this simple? Because I think As I
Yep.
listen to everybody, we're really thinking way too far ahead. We haven't had anything in place. We've lost a lot of trees. Our why is we want to save trees. We want to save trees on new construction and big new projects. And that's our why. And that's it. If we can't think about critical root zones on properties other than where we want to be. So I think we got to keep it simple and let's get this moving along. And I think we're really starting to think about too many things. And that's not what our charge is. We want to, I heard, I think Erica say earlier, let's learn from other bylaws and keep this one really simple and then let's adapt. And I think we're stormwater, large house, we're doing a lot really in a short period of time. And we're really going to go through a lot of growing pains. And I think my biggest concern is we haven't talked about staffing. Well, we did and we brushed it off. And I think like Joe said, there's going to be incredible amounts of time spent to all these bylaws, and we really haven't figured that out. So let's keep this as simple as possible. And then years from now, let's go from 0 to 60 really slow. You know, let's not just race out there and we don't have that. So let's keep it really simple right now. And focus on simple, really simple.
Sure.
I like simple.
Yeah, I totally agree, but can I ask you one final question? Does the tree on the property line get included?
I'm sorry. say
That,
again?
to me, it feels like at least we should capture, because I know there are lots of trees that just sit on the property line. So I think that's gotta be, it's not the one that's in the other property, but it's the one that's on the shared property that has to be part of, at least there should be something in the writing.
Isn't there wording that says that if a certain percentage of the tree is over the
Yeah, probably.
property line, then
By
that's
definition.
considered a protected
Okay.
tree?
Yeah.
It might be in the definitions.
I think that's what Wellesley said they use. It has to be at least 50% of the trunk has to be within the property line.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
that's what we say.
So
If it's
and
in the
I believe
definition-
that is in the definitions.
That's a state law. That's not a local bylaw. That's state law right there.
Okay,
Ed, what do you mean by state law?
Meaning if a tree is partially owned by both neighbors, it's partially owned by both neighbors. You can't go take it down without the permission. That's a state law. So
What if
it's
it's
shared
60
ownership,
What if
Mass
it's,
general law.
what if it's 60% on the property line? Does it matter? 60%?
I don't know about that, Artie, but
Okay.
again, I don't think we need to rewrite laws that, we can do whatever we want, but I think keep it simple, guys.
No, I'm not trying to rewrite it. I just wanted to know what you meant by that as far as, so if it's on the property line, as far as you know, the state law, it's both owners. Both.
Yeah, that's how state law is written. If it's on the
Tree-
property line, it's both owners. You can't remove
Makes
the
it
tree without the
sense.
permission of the other owner, without a written notice, and yeah, that's state law, so, yeah.
The contractors will do
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I
something
don't-
they've had to deal with.
Yeah, and I don't think that's our role. Our role is to make sure that whatever is within that setback, that, the free yard is somewhat regulated and protected.
Okay.
How the property
So-
owners deal with it, that's true.
Okay, so 1 and 2 and 3, does anybody have any comments? I mean, those are really just reiterating stuff that
Yeah.
we did in the bylaw.
Honestly,
And
I
3 we
would-
can't really talk about because we don't have the zoning language yet.
Yes, so I was gonna say,
Wait, you're talking about number 3. Okay.
So 3 is the section where we talk about how do you locate protected trees on the property, and
Okay.
this is
So we
very
can
much
skip
tied
that.
to what the definition of tree yard.
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
need
which we
to hear
don't
back
have.
from
we
Chris
said
on.
we were going to talk to Chris about whether we do it one way or the other.
Mhm.
Yep, yeah, how that
Okay.
needs to be.
Yeah.
All right, so that's,
Drafted relative
that's
to the
further
setback.
down the line.
Can we, before we get even down there, given what we just said, so number 2, when does the tree bylaw apply? I like the chart. I think that's great. Assuming that we keep the 4 things that
Yeah.
Oscar appropriately said we beat to death.
That we've beaten to death,
But we
yes.
still don't, it never, all right, so then, I think if you answered yes to any of these questions and there's a protected tree, I would suggest that you bump.
Put it
Me,
before
I
the
would
table?
put the definition of protected tree in here, or maybe not the definite, but whatever we land on. You don't wanna have to, because none of this
Yeah.
talks about, you need to immediately say. What is a protected tree, not how do I locate them, which this gets very technical,
Right.
like.
Yeah.
What is the definition? And it could simply be, I mean, the reg can basically repeat the bylaw language,
Okay,
but we can also simplify it and make it. more user friendly, so.
I kind of like, I
Could
like
that be
that
a-
idea.
Could
We
that be
need
in the opening
something.
paragraph? This is a bylaw about protected
They
trees.
don't have to go
Mhm.
back to the bylaw. and-
Defined
But you're talking about-
as-
you're
Well, so
defi-
actually
you're talking
both of those
define-
are-
You're talking defining what a protected tree is.
Yes. so
Before you
I'm-
say how you
but I
locate
like
them, remind
also
people
what
what they are.
So
Trees.
number 3 should become.
Greater
more-
than 6, and it's
Six.
got part of that there. It's the trees greater than 6 inches within the tree yard.
Yes, that was.
So-
reduced.
Yeah, but it needs to be like, it is not a diseased tree. It is not, like, we need a checklist here, and I feel like there was one.
It really is already it's in number 3. The definition is in number 3. Any
Where?
tree with a DBH of 6 inches or greater within the following tree yards is considered to be a
It doesn't
protected
have
tree.
anything
So-
about the exceptions. Like, I want it to be there's a very,
It's in the definitions.
all right, so we need to incorporate that into the.
But I like
text.
the idea you posed that a
It's like-
protected tree is not a disease, you know.
Right, like put it very, because what we want is,
Boom, boom, boom.
it's essentially, it could either be part of number 2. Right, when does it apply? Cause that's like what, or you could change number 2 to say, cause we use this language later. What, I don't know if people like the word trigger or not, but what actions trigger the application of the bylaw? And then, you know, I like Oscar's lead-in would be this bylaw applies, you know, the rules of this bylaw apply to protected trees. A protected tree is, and then lift the definition when we finalize it, exactly what it is and insert it. It could be part of
I
number
like
2,
that.
or it could be part of number 3, but it is there. And that you want the first page,
I
and
guess
like
you're right, yeah.
regs can be really confusing, but this is our chance to
Love
make
that.
it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
reiterate on the
Okay.
first page.
I definitely. like
Under
that.
authority
And
or
then.
before,
like
after
number
authority
3,
or,
As it is now, is very technical, which is good, because you need it there, but
okay,
I want a layperson
Yeah,
to be able
I
to
think
read
that
it
was a
and-
good
okay,
catch.
good feedback.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, let's move on. So table 1 on the next page is scratched. Then determining the tree diameter, there's a change there,
Uh,
6 inches instead of 10 inches.
so that was a change that Wellesley had made. They went
Yeah.
from 10 to 6, so we updated this to
Yeah.
be 10 to 6.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I did ask a question in here about instances where protected tree's been removed and there's only a stump remaining. And if it needs to be clarified that the tree warden or their designated agent is developing an estimated DBH for the tree. So like in situations where maybe a tree came down, a neighbor reported it, they go out, the only thing that's left is the stump. How will they be determining DBH to figure out either replanting or compensation?
Well, they're under the different figures, like figure 3 might be closest to, the measure point, right? So maybe we need like, I don't know, maybe we don't need any extra language, but it's because figure 3 says if it forks, you go to the lowest, largest part within the first 4.5 feet. So you're saying basically if the tree was cut down, you go to the largest part of the remaining stump,
If you have a stump.
if you have a stump.
If you don't have a stump.
I mean, if it's gonna start at 6 inches to be a protected tree, there's probably not gonna be stumps. You know, for,
How do you want to handle that?
All
Why
right,
don't we
so
just
can
have a
we go back
standard
and see how it reads
high
right now?
number
I have an idea, but. let me
penalty
see how
that
it
you
reads.
automatically put it towards the higher end. Right, like, because but I could be losing a nuance here, but if we're talking about if someone has cut it down in the last 12 months, and it is protected, and they're pulling a permit, it's kind of hitting that area that we're concerned about. And so to disincentivize that, you put just, and it's simple, we want simple, I don't want.
Why don't we just measure the stuff?
Just, no, I think you just say it's, if.
It's gonna be bigger than what it was probably.
Yeah.
But you may not have a stump, right? And so
Sure.
I think you just say, the average, we expect, whatever the payment system is, you just say it needs to be mitigated or paid at X, the 75% tile of the most like, what we've determined is the scale. Wherever the payment scale is, you go towards the high end and you say any tree that, is protected and found to be removed before a mitigation plan submitted will be charged at this amount, like, and it's across
And
the
it
board.
cannot be measured.
No, I think it's, I don't know why. if it-
I see what you're saying.
Just that's
You're
the
saying
penalty.
Put the penalty right in the regulation.
It's simpler if you, because
No,
if you
it's-
measure it, you have to get Ed and everyone to go out there.
Yeah.
But
If there's
if
some
you
sort of a-
look and you see that, on the GIS data that
Yeah.
half the canopy's gone or whatever, then they have to pay the maximum.
Well, I mean, you're still
you
doing it tree by tree. I mean, I'm saying like, let's just assume the average, like, look, if someone applies for a demolition permit. And 10 months ago, they had a disease tree that they took down, doesn't matter, not protected, right? They can. We need to find some way to prove that, but most likely, like, we have to figure that out. But even if you just take them at their word. And then if you have. I think I'm really trying to incorporate Ed's comments, like, the last thing we wanna do is send out Ed or his team to measure a tree that has gone. And try to guess how big it was.
Yeah,
So that then we can fight with the homeowner over how much they might have to pay, right? So whatever the dollar amounts are here, we choose something in the, middle to high range and say this is the range, any tree that can't be accounted for, that has been cut down and is deemed protected, so maybe there's a process by which they can show it wasn't protected, will be assessed at X size, wherever.
well, it was
Uh,
done by like, if it's 20 inches, then it's
Right,
150 times 20.
right, but
If
my
it's
point is we
20
just say, well,
yeah.
assume it's 55. or
Okay,
whatever
so
that-
we'll
whatever that number.
Make an assumption.
Whatever I'm not the tree person to make the decision, but I think we can just.
I
I'm
like
still
the
stuck on
idea.
how you're gonna like
I think
measure
it
what
can
was
be, though, I
taken
mean,
down before.
I like the idea, what I see of it is, it can be quite arbitrary for
Mhm.
those people who. But I
It
like the
can be,
idea.
I mean,
like
there
the
can be
idea.
an appeal process, but I
Right.
think if 90% of the time we can avoid. The work of guessing what the size was, that's a win.
Right,
And if there's a really legitimate. Argument, like, and there's gonna be some sort of appeals process, put the burden on them to go through the appeals process
I
and
like
say.
that.
We made a mistake, we accidentally cut down a 6-inch tree, we didn't mean to, we shouldn't be charged at this rate, and they can show us that,
exactly.
then that's fine, that's 1 out of 100 instead of 99 times that. The government has to do it,
What do you think,
assuming Chris says that's okay. but I
and what do
think
you
it will-
think about that? I wanna
I
hear
think you're
your
gonna have to
opinion
write that
on it.
language because none of us can.
I'm not like a draft, you can tell I've got a deadline, I have to leave in 15 minutes, so I'm like,
Okay,
do it.
Well, let's scroll down and look at determining, let's read this a little bit long, because I'm just thinking of one thing right now. I was up in Maine the other day at my father's property up, a camp up in Maine, and I noticed a pine tree took down on a protected area. I said, Dad, he said it was a dead pine tree. And he left a 4.5-foot stump like that. And if he measured the 4.5-foot spot, he'd probably get a lesser fine because the taper of his pine tree is really narrow. But if you looked at the base of the trunk, it would be a lot more money. So again, I think the purpose of this was measuring points. So I think we're like getting a little bit too far into the weeds. I'd keep it exactly like it says in Wellesley. It works fine, and move on.
okay.
That's my input. Yep.
Wait.
Perfect, just
I
how it's
thought
written.
I
It gives you
thought
a lot of
Wellesley
measuring points.
anything
Perfect.
for that stuff.
They
don't.
don't have anything for stuff.
I'm just thinking my dad in Maine. We
No,
would have
no,
looked
I'm
at it
just
and
talking.
measure
what
point
we-
right there would have fit his example right there, and that's why it's there. It gives you different points of angles right there. I keep it exactly how it is.
So wait,
We
so
just
Ed,
asked the question.
Yep.
Not in there.
No, but I think that there are two different things, as Ed
It's
said,
too far
that-
in the weeds.
I'm not disagreeing, I have zero
simple.
comment. How to do that, I'm not a tree person. I
It
mean,
looks complicated, but that's as simple as it gets right there.
And we totally, I am not making any suggestion, somebody
That's
had
fine.
raised a very good question about. What happens in a scenario, we
Yep.
we want clarity, what happens in a scenario where the tree is already gone? And I think if we can utilize that as both an incentive point and like, the only way that I see to deal with that is you guys would have to go out
Yeah,
and measure it
if there's a stump.
if there's a stump.
If there's a
Trying
stump.
to avoid the open question, and what do you think is the right, is it easier from your perspective, from an ease perspective, to just say, if it has already been taken down, it'll be assessed at this, 50 whatever it is, when you scroll down further, the compensation, if it was 20 times, it'll be measured as if it was the 55 or something. I don't really understand that chart, but
So here's a real life example. Couple weeks ago on South Street, someone took down
that's right.
countless pine trees, 100-year-old pine trees, eastern white pines, dozens of them on
Yeah.
the scenic road. And I mentioned it to the planning board, who has the authority on the scenic road, and said, whoa, you might want to reach out to that resident. I don't think they knew the bylaw existed. And obviously with bylaws and planning, but they don't have staff. So it goes back, whoa, we weren't around town. We didn't know. Can engineering go out and check it? And they said they could, but the person already took care of all the stumps. And one day they took all the trees and the stumps. So again, it just goes back to keep it simple. I mean, right now we're in a back and
Wait,
forth
but-
trying to measuring property lines and trying to figure it
So-
out, and trying to assume what those stumps could have been. So I
But
think
that's exactly the point. You're
Exactly.
absolutely right. So
Yeah.
what,
He's saying we're not gonna be able to capture everything.
not going to be able to capture it.
that's
So
right.
keep it as
and
simple as
that's why-
possible. If there's stumps, you can capture it. If not,
No,
like
but-
you said, put in language to assess them the highest possible value
Yeah,
per
that's
Google
fair.
Earth. That's it.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
tax them,
Google Earth.
I think we're
and
you get a penalty.
Google Street View.
Yep.
I would.
We'll assume the highest possible caliper inch.
You have to make
and that's
an
not-
assumption
I'll help.
based on
I
a
can help
canopy,
track.
what the
Yeah.
stump
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
That's,
All right,
It's like
we
South
got-
Street. It's going to be a
We
guess.
got this.
Okay.
We're all on the
Pure
same.
guess.
all right,
It's up to us to guess. It's like, hey, you made the mistake. Now we're going to assess the tax. Sorry.
Yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
Section 4, I triggered the tree bylaw. What materials do I submit for review?
Like that.
One of the things, so Joe was suggesting it should be stamped by, the tree plan should be stamped by an engineer or something. We've always talked about it in this meeting as having been submitted by an arborist.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure, he
That's
said
fine, because they're not gonna, I think he mostly was saying somebody who cares about their reputation.
their reputation.
And I
We,
didn't think
we
it's-
wanted to know the species too.
Right.
Because we know stormwater probably wanted to have a record of the species, so I don't know,
The arborist provides that.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah,
but the civil's gonna go locate stuff.
Yeah.
And the arborist is just gonna go out and they'll give you notations on
He
on
uses on
species.
plans, yeah.
Yeah, so he's not doing anything other than going out, put his eyes on it and giving you species.
Well, he gives you the tree protection plan.
Yes, yes.
He
Okay.
lays it out.
the base tree protection and mitigation plan. We should have an because I keep calling it something different every time I mention. All right, so,
So why?
Those are two different things. You're either protecting it or you're mitigating it.
but the whole, it's one plan,
So
isn't it?
can we
it's
keep it
one
simple
plan.
and just put tree mitigation plan? How do they, how is it in Wellesley? What do they,
Base tree protection and mitigation plan.
okay.
And that's really
Works for
the
me.
most encompassing
Yeah.
definition.
check.
Yep.
Agreed.
Moving on,
That changes.
any changes? This is definite defining the scale. This is the combination of. Here's a figure on the critical root zone, but it doesn't. Am I going at a different rate than you?
I was gonna say, I thought I was behind you, but I think it's ahead of you.
Okay. But we're saying there's nothing in here. What does Wellesley have about the critical root zone? Where does it,
So it's the Okay. Oh, I can't see.
Okay, so it says that the base tree protection and mitigation plan should identify the critical root zones of
Yes.
yeah,
It does, it puts the circles on the.
right. So we were previously talking about the critical root zones of trees on the other properties.
But we're gonna
Yeah.
capture everything that's on the, yeah, from the
So one
property
thing-
line in.
One thing I'm not sure where to incorporate it, but I think if any of the mitigation plan is within a resource area or jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, I want it to be clear here that that plan needs to go to us first. Because we need to see it, we need to review it, and we need to approve it. Otherwise. It can be confusing because somebody over here can approve it, whereas jurisdictionally, it might have been a totally different ballgame.
Okay,
So if a protected tree within a tree yard is within a resource area, then it should be sent first to Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission
the
needs. to
plan should
approve-
be sent first.
So, for example, let's say Kurt has this beautiful backyard they're working on, and there are 3 trees, and one of them is within the BBW. And, that plan, if it goes and it flies under the radar, it will probably be approved before it even goes into an NOI process. So somewhere in that process,
But if there's a tree that's in the area, the wetland area, and they're applying for a demo permit, doesn't it automatically have to go to?
I think it is, because that's what Deb mentioned, but I wanna make sure somewhere here it says. You know, the tree,
It's like the conservation supersedes.
right, something
Which-
along the lines, yeah, I like that, you know, that. Yes, you have a tree plan, and yes, you will submit it, however, if it's within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act.
It's almost like,
So you're saying
The
you're gonna
wetlands,
review the
the gate,
conservation
the-
committee's gonna review the tree plants?
I think we
That's what the
excluded, we
Conservation Commission
excluded.
does
that.
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in-
So it
it's in
has
the
to,
bylaw.
so the resources has to be marked out by a certified resource. It has to be marked out, designated, where is the resource?
Mhm.
Then from there, then they designate where's 25, 50, 100.
And they would know, like Kurt would know, this isn't a wetland, I'm definitely gonna need an NOI or
Okay.
request for.
So you just think we should add the language
I
that
just
says
wanna
the
make it
supersedes?
clear that.
Okay, good.
Any tree plant mitigate, what do you call it?
Base tree plan and
That's just a
mitigation,
mouthful.
or something like that.
For any trees that fall within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. It will always have to go through the approval of the commission first,
Okay,
wherever there you wanna put that.
okay.
Yeah.
Let me talk to Deb
There's no
to
sense
see
going to
how she
mitigation.
separates it.
Yeah, there's no sense going to mitigation through some other part of town when the conservation
Mhm.
commission is not gonna
Okay,
come back and say, well, no.
The
So they
bylaw
said
does,
no.
the bylaw right now does clarify that Conservation Commission supersedes anything for this, but I will check with Deb to see if there's a way to write it for the regulations
The regulations.
versus the bylaw.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a good point.
okay. All right, moving on.
So number 1, we have new information from Ed, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, it's gonna be 1.5 inches.
Really? I think it's, all right. Yeah, Ed, you're good with, you like the 1.5, not 2, right? And we're not gonna do a range.
Not 3, not
It's
2.
1.5.
It's-
We incentivize tree planting no matter how small the trees are. We want trees to grow and survive, and I
Right,
think the smaller the
so
better.
minimum caliper then is 1.5 inches, correct?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I will fix that.
Okay,
thank you.
that too.
Wait, I'm at bond provisions, is that where you are?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I just didn't. Why did I highlight it? Oh, I didn't really understand that whole. Basically, it says that if they can't do the planting and they're gonna put the money to the select board's gonna hold it in an interest-bearing account. And then if they don't do it, then all that money is gonna go into the tree revolving fund. But I don't understand this. If the outstanding balance is not paid, the property owner will be notified. They have committed a violation. I don't understand
I
that.
think that's if they didn't put in money for the bond.
Okay, I find that language confusing.
Yeah,
Brad-
I think we should talk to Chris about it, or how to phrase this, slash, how to, I need to make sure that this is okay language for the select board.
Mhm.
But I will ask Chris about it.
And the same thing about compliance. I don't think we decided at what point before the issue, we're not gonna have them, we're gonna issue the occupancy permits ahead of this, because you can't hold an occupancy permit up for, years.
I think I think that's what the second section is, the little red at the bottom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For the 24
But that's
months.
putting now the burden is on the tree warden.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we can't, you're right, we can't hold those approvals.
But do we want to reference the document? We were gonna say that it's based on we were gonna try and create a document that was gonna have legal. Document the responsibility that the homeowner has for that 24-month period, based
Yeah.
on.
I think
The
we-
last
that's a,
meeting
that's a
talked
Chris
about that,
question
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Cause I'm
But
not sure
would
what
that
the
go in here
implications of
somehow,
that.
just to reiterate that it's not just that the tree warden is gonna make a phone call, but it's actually the responsibility of the homeowner to.
mhm. Yeah,
They don't have to, they're not gonna go track down the tree warden, but that they
Mm,
shouldn't be surprised, because in other words, we were worried about the tree warden just wandering around and walking
we
onto somebody's
did talk-
property,
We
right?
did talk in the last meeting, that's the point, sir. We did talk in the last meeting, and I think you mentioned something along the lines that when let's say it's a new construction, which is mostly what we're gonna get a lot of.
Yeah.
out of, this is, when you do the construction and you pass on the title and all of that, you hand a package of materials, all the engineering plans, all the architectural plans, the tree mitigation plan will be a part of that.
But that should be flagged as a document that records the trees that will be tracked.
Right,
For 24 months.
so it's on the contractor, as far as I've heard, why don't you just take it from here? It's on the contractor to ensure that those trees are mitigated and or replanted or whatever the tree mitigation plan
Yeah,
said.
we would just tell them, you owe.
But you're passing the responsibility.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
'Cause You're
Yeah.
you're out, so, but they need to be aware
and then also,
that when the warden comes on 24,
But that's a
24
good point,
months.
give me 1 second, Erica. So when you pass on the responsibility, how do you see that process? Like, what do you think that looks like?
I mean, I think it would just be tied to the homeowner, or to the owner of the loft at the time.
is that document sufficient though, when you're giving them, I mean, they're gonna get a
That's the
ton
thing,
of
like, I don't
documents.
know. 'cause
They
I'm
get a ton
trying to
of.
say, hey, I wouldn't do this, but I could foresee a situation in which, I tell you, hey, homeowner, you are now responsible for this for 24 months.
Cause I'm sure homeowners going
Yeah,
in and
well,
buying
it's
a
like
house,
some-
the last thing they're gonna think of is that I gotta watch trees
But
and
you
see
get
if they're
like
gonna
a
die.
contractor who says, oh, I told him, and it's like,
Right.
and then it's. So,
Right.
I don't know.
And also they sell the house in 12 months and it's a
Exactly,
new guy.
yeah.
So, right, so all of that needs to be somehow upfront and
and I think what
easy.
we settled on after the conversation 2 weeks ago was that we are going to state what the rules are, but in reality, it's not really going to,
Nobody's gonna
Ted's
go out.
really not gonna be
Nobody's- yeah,
going out
yeah.
and checking. It's gonna be complaint based.
Right, right.
I think we accepted
That's
that
what-
as
that's
one
the
of
way
the
Wellesley's got it.
limitations in
Yeah.
our authority.
Yeah,
Because it's impractical.
Limited.
to
this
get
is what the
40.
expectations are. And you can say the tree warden will be coming out, sometime in the 24 months. You could say it there, but in reality, it's not gonna happen.
And no one's gonna watch this video to know what we're talking about. No one's gonna watch this at all. No one.
But no, I think it's reasonable to say that homeowners are gonna get the package of information for their house. They're gonna store it somewhere, they're gonna completely forget about it, right? And something happens to the trees and they totally forgot, and it's gonna happen. So how do you enforce it?
You don't. We decided we
So
weren't gonna
what we
enforce
did,
it.
well, right, so what we did say was that those documents, that tree mitigation plan. When the occupancy permit is issued, that tree mitigation plan will be saved in a database somewhere. Wherever. I'm not sure, Ed, what were you thinking about this, but I'm thinking it'll be somewhere,
Recorded, so it's got a 24-month
right, somewhere in the system.
reminder.
So it might be that a complaint comes in. And that document will not be resuscitated from that.
Well, you wouldn't
database.
need that because it'd be on the mitigation plan would be at part of the initial submission. So that wouldn't be done at closeout, it'd be done at the initial treatment.
So it's already on the record from
Yeah.
from
It's
the.
like, hey, we're gonna mitigate,
First one.
we're gonna take down
It's on the building.
X amount of trees, we're gonna mitigate Y amount of trees. That mitigation is gonna be, they're gonna be replanted at the end. The arborists will come back certified, and that will be part of like the C of O or the certificates of occupancy. So, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so
So it's gonna be a recorded
Right, so
document
it would be
yeah.
recorded with
with
the
the permit.
DPW, with the commissioner when they receive the certificate of
Yes.
occupancy. So, that's
That's
the best you can
yeah,
do.
that's it.
Okay,
That's it.
Well, I don't think we should say we're not going. to.
no, I don't think we should say that either.
Oh, by the way, we're not coming,
We're not
but
No, we
just
said
saying.
we put the expectation out there
But
and,
Is a requirement, yeah, is a requirement.
okay,
Everybody has good.
that's,
So appendix.
question, should an additional permit fee be applied relative to the tree plans? If so, should this fee be utilized to help cover the cost of the new staff? That's
I
a
just
good
make a note
question.
that I've heard from other staff that it might be helpful to justify the cost for adding the new staff for this work if there was an additional permit fee.
So the contractor has to pay more to take trees out and pay more on the permit fee because of that.
I'm just letting you know what the conversation was, and it's up to the committee how they choose to pursue that.
Well, if
We haven't
it's-
said what the
if
fee
it's
is
not-
yet.
If they're paying something to take the tree down, in theory, that should include the cost of us dealing with the stuff, I would think.
So the arborist is a cost. The mitigation and cost of putting together the plan.
Is a cost to
Getting
the
the-
contractor.
So it's all, it can be, as de minimis as whatever the mitigation plan is, but it can be potentially a big amount of money on the contractor who's gonna pass on that to the owners. But I guess my question is, if we don't have a permit fee, are you saying that it will be harder to build a case, a business case to get a staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if they.
I don't know.
I'm not-
If
I'm
the
not saying this
permit
is
fee's
bullshit, this is
$100
like
and
it.
there's 80
Isn't it logical to have a permit?
tear
fee?
downs.
It's modest.
We have a permit.
But
fee,
there is
yeah,
a- yeah.
thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
For a building permit fee,
How much is a,
like thousands of dollars.
so
Yeah.
what would we charge?
It's based on
$500
percentage of the
for a
Home bay.
tree mitigation fee? And that, if it's not enough money to worry about. It's not gonna cover the staff.
May I, because I had a thought. And
I don't think.
So what is important is to do a business case. When I'm thinking about money and quantifying, what do you need to make that staff decision? So we reverse engineer it. And if it makes sense to put a permit fee, then yes. But based on what I've heard, that permit fee if it's a flat fee of, let's say, $500, that's not gonna pay for staff.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
So I'm
It's
just,
nominal.
so
No.
what I'm thinking is, if we're going to do a business case, which I'm not sure that's the role of this committee, is it?
I think it is in part.
I think the staff have identified the implementation of this bylaw is gonna be extremely challenging with existing staff resources. So we asked the question so that the committee can discuss. It's the
Okay.
purview of the committee to decide whether or not this is something they want to acknowledge or measures
Okay.
of which to
So-
include something like this, but we've heard from other communities who are enforcing that having a permit fee was very helpful and that they've been able to help justify the cost. We've heard internally that it will make a case for adding new staff easier if a permit fee is included.
Okay.
But it's the decision of the committee. This is just information that we bring to
Okay.
you to decide.
I'm gonna sit on that and think through it, because
Right.
I'm not sure. When I'm doing business cases, it's like, what's the objective of this? And do we have a figure? And then we kind of figure out how we're gonna get to that figure. And I'm not sure where to go with this, because it's like throwing darts at the wall.
I wouldn't think that $500 is negligible, because we have to wait for Joe, but if we're including additions and remodelings here, there could be, in excess of 100 permits pulled, times $500 gives you, it's putting something toward the cost of staff.
Could we first, how much, not counting the permit fee, are there any costs to the home, or what are the costs to the homeowner? Before they get to that point? And are any of those costs going to the town before that point, or are they just going to the arborist and taking them down? So what costs are going to the town, if any, before they get to a point of paying a permit for something? Any costs at all? Anything?
I don't think so. It's all contractor
The
costs.
arborist from the homeowner to an arborist. Is there any cost at all to the town? So is this permit the only cost, the only money that the town is getting related to this? Well, yeah, but the building permit's the building permit, that's gonna be there anyway, that's not related to the trees per se. So the town is not getting anything additional if there's no permit. But what is gonna happen is when they take the trees down, they're either taking the trees down and mitigating it, which is a cost to them, or they're taking the trees down and paying the town a tree fund.
Mhm.
And
Which
so,
doesn't cover a staff.
well, I don't know how much that money is going into the tree fund.
The
So it's
tree-
going into the tree fund.
Right.
So is the permit fee related to the mitigation, or is it related to just simply taking the trees down? What's the permit fee related to?
Administrative
review.
costs.
Just administrative cost
Yeah.
period, whether it's be,
Review, yeah.
it's just peer review.
It's a whole new
That's all.
process we don't
Yeah.
have, so.
All new process.
Is Wellston charging you anything when you build there?
Lots.
Is there gonna be a permit fee for the stormwater? For the large house?
So Gabby, I
And
think
stormwater?
this is a very big discussion. I think I
But
need
there's
to
additional
think this through.
Engineering.
And I think what would be helpful would be to see how other,
Yeah,
Permit.
Wellesley is not charging, right?
Wellesley does not have new staff. When they added this bylaw, they put it in the lap of their building commissioner.
Not that
There's
I'm
no-
sorry, they don't charge an additional permit. fee.
Is there an additional fee on top of their permit? I would have to double check. I'm
I,
not-
I,
Yeah,
think-
so-
I think there should be some type of permit, because then when they're doing the addition, they have a choice. Are they taking the trees down, or not taking the trees down? Maybe sometimes they don't have a choice, but they're deciding what to do based on financial implications.
But they're
They're
gonna
doing
have
a
to
tree
pay the
permit No
permit,
matter what, they have to.
no
file
matter
it.
what, if they
Right, so-
trigger one of those four things,
Yeah.
then they will have to
Pay
file the permit.
for the construction aspect of it. I'm talking about the permit for the tree mitigation, call it whatever you
But
want.
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the permit for like the same time you're paying a building permit,
No,
you're gonna have to pay a permit
That's
into.
correct. That's what we're talking about, the tree permit. That's what we are talking about. So I think if there should be some type of a permit paying back that they're taking down some trees, I think there should be. is again, it is something additional.
But they may not take any trees down.
Correct, they
They
may.
still have to pay the permit fee.
No, the permit fee is related to, there's a permit fee related to construction, then there's a permit fee related to, are there any trees coming down? If they're not taking any trees
No, but that's
down,
not it. The
well,
tree
to re-
protection,
to review the process, fine.
right,
So-
But if they're not taking any
Folks.
trees down,
but you can say, if you're not taking trees down, you don't have to pay a permit fee, but if you are, you do.
yeah, I don't.
I don't know
So-
how, no, how do you do that? You can't do that.
So folks,
you can't.
It's still the same
You can't
process.
do that, it's just a matter of warrant.
so folks, my brain hurts. Sorry, my brain
Oh,
hurts.
God.
I think in numbers and I'm thinking a lot of numbers here. So I think what would be helpful, and we bench it, maybe I recommend we bench it for now, is maybe for the next meeting, we get an idea of the existing, all the fees that we currently charge for all the permits that we have that are already triggers for us. Maybe that would be one recommendation to follow. The other one would be to see what Concord, Wellesley, Newton are doing. If they charge, but I'll check Somerville. And in other towns, but I'm curious to see what they do. And then I'm curious to see internally what we have done that has succeeded. Like, how have we implemented new permit processes and what has been the success in, being able to get a new staff? I think we do need to think about this if it's going to.
Yeah,
be effective.
definitely.
So I do feel like it's important. I just don't feel
Yeah,
like we
me
have
too.
enough information to even have a sound discussion. And my brain hurts right now.
I think.
Ed,
Guys, can I give an example here? So Artie was talking a lot about cost of the town. So Artie, you know where I live. You know my house in Needham.
Yeah, of
I
course.
sold that and Kurt bought it. It's gonna go from a $500,000 house to a $3 million house. What about the fees we get, real estate fees, tax fees for that new assessment where it's worth? There's a lot of money we're making this, and we're missing the bus here on all the new monies we're getting real estate taxes on the gentrification of Needham. What about those monies? These can pay for all this stuff and staff and beyond that. We're taking little ranch homes to $1 million homes, and we're forgetting about all the monies the town is getting, right? A lot of money every single year, real estate tax money. Let's quantify that. And if we look back, we'll be amazed at the millions of dollars we're getting on the flipping of town houses from small to big. And I've mentioned that for many, many years, and nobody wants to talk about that. Where is that money going? Right?
Allard.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
A lot of money. A lot of money.
I think you have a really
Yeah,
big point.
we already have the money.
I
It's in the
think,
real estate tax. It's paying for everything we know about. Why don't we tap into that for the staff to do this?
I wanna understand what you're saying, Ed. Are you,
Yeah.
are you saying the town's already collecting enough
Of
money?
course we are. Every time
We
we
don't
flip
need
a
to-
ranch
so you're
house from
saying
500,000 to 3 million, we get a real estate tax benefit that triples, quadruples, quintuples every time we build a big house, right, Kurt?
We don't need
Right,
to
everyone?
add, we don't need to add another permit.
permit
fee.
fee.
Don't. We already have
Okay.
the money. We've already realized the benefits. The cost analysis is already there. Let's just
It
run the
also sounds-
numbers.
It also sounds like if you're talking about if they're not taking anything down versus taking something down. Yeah. It's
All
We're just
right.
talking about flipping homes.
Yeah,
well,
We're
we-
making
right,
a
we
ranch
should
house
table
where
it
it's
anyway.
assessing a value of very short
Okay.
money to a huge dollar value that the town is realizing those benefits. Right?
so I have some ideas about how to do this. I think we need to get more information and I definitely see where you're coming from, Ed.
Yeah.
Get it, I understand, I've been working in operations for many years, but building a good business case requires, creativity and ingenuity, and it's all about the numbers, so I think if we at least start with a baseline
Yep,
on those, we can come back to the table, Ed, and we can, develop a very high level, because this is not going to be a financial business case. but we're gonna put together something that can potentially help with that. I think that's what I suggest. I'll leave it to the rest of the team members, but I really do believe that there's a way forward. With the information we have, it's not enough.
There's still a lot of information that you need for this whole section. Like, to be honest, Ed and I didn't even touch the contribution rates because
Right.
that's gonna be that could be a whole meeting, was just talking
Uh-huh.
about.
That's
So maybe-
right from Wellesley
But-
now, right? That's
Yeah.
just the
That's not
Wellesley
for
numbers,
But,
right?
and Joe, as he mentioned earlier, he wasn't able to pull the average permit numbers, so we don't even have that.
Okay,
Yeah.
So there's
so
a
we're
lot
gonna
of
stop at
information that
appendix.
The group needs to have, the questions that were identified in this document are questions that Ed and I looked at as like, okay, these are big meaty topics that
Yeah.
community needs to take a consensus
So
on.
maybe we
There's no expectation that you're gonna solve each of these tonight. It's
Right.
just flagging them for you so that the group can have a discussion.
And we should have a full group, yeah. to do
I
that.
think
Yeah.
we should consider.
So that's good, because that's the last page.
So we're gonna stop, we're stopping at appendix A.
We're gonna, yeah, we're not gonna
bench
discuss
this-
appendix
We're gonna
B.
bench this subject. For doing that, the contribution rate schedule, what we just talked about, Gabby, Erica, are we going to do this this should be the topic of just.
One meeting.
I think it's gonna be just one, yeah, and it'll take many meetings. And I know, when Chris was here, he had flagged that. Based on the challenge that Wellesley had, it would be helpful to have. A memo to justify what the costs
Yeah,
are.
instead of arbitrary.
And I
And that's
know
part of the
from,
business case.
yeah, and I know from conversations that Ed and I have had with other staff. With these contribution rates, there's a variety of approaches to this. So we'll be looking for input from the committee as to.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think should be the reasoning for some of these dollars? It could get very messy very quickly, so the more feedback we have from the group, the more helpful it will be for us as we're trying to look at
Mhm.
options to present.
Curious for one thing, so when they're filling out the application, are you, I guess ultimately it gets down, are there any trees being taken down related to your construction? So are they checking off a box there that says no?
No,
or yes?
no, it's the four things
Yeah.
are they have a demo permit? If they are, then they have to do a base plan, tree protection and mitigation plan. Are they gonna take a street permit out? Then they have to do the
So,
same thing.
and that essentially will come from an arborist.
Yes,
So if it comes
It's
from.
a
an
combination
arborist-
of civil engineer doing a
Civil
plan.
engineer, If it comes
and-
from the arborist, it says, no, there are no trees.
No, there may not be
The
any
point-
trees
the point-
in
yeah,
the,
The point,
in
the point being.
there may
is-
not be.
Yeah, point being is the arborist may say, no, there are no trees. There are no protected trees that are being impacted by this, right? They
But
come back and say-
the plan is filed
Yeah,
and there is a
yeah.
recording of the
Yeah.
trees that are on the site. And if nothing falls in a zone that needs to be
So there's.
protected
Then
or,
there's nothing
then-
that we're doing after.
right, right.
but that's a document that
Yeah.
right now, nobody is asking.
Are you
for.
suggesting that somebody might be lying, or are you just
Well,
suggesting?
no, we know
Okay.
that's gonna happen. The point being is, although arborists don't tend to do that, no, we
Right.
know that's gonna happen. These, the Conservation Commission, that happens, it happens too often. Point being is, if the arborist comes in, again, it's on record that there are no trees being
Removed,
impacted. If no being impacted, that means we're done. That means
but they still have to do a plan.
I know, I understand. They're doing the plan. They bring the plan, said there are no trees being impacted. So as far as the town resources are
Yeah.
concerned, we're done.
Yes,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
how many
Okay.
projects come in that don't touch a tree?
Yeah.
I mean,
good
who
question.
knows?
I don't know.
Tree in the tree yard, so
Right.
also like only a segment of trees, we're not
Yeah.
talking about the
Right.
whole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was a great discussion. My brain does hurt.
Well, mine does too.
Are we done?
We need a.
Motion?
So do you need a motion to adjourn?
Make motion to
Second?
adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
I vote.
Okay, we're done. Thank you,
Hey,
everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Ed.
See ya.
Good night.